All right, I just got done rambling about Gurdjieff and about how I think that the phrase raising of consciousness is the same thing as raising intelligence, because both of those terms used in that way are the same concept. And really, I wouldn't use either phrase, consciousness or intelligence. I would use the phrase coherence. And when you're measuring intelligence, what you're actually doing is measuring coherence, the coherence of one's brain. In a similar way as one would measure the strength of a magnet. Larger magnets tend to be stronger than smaller magnets. Why? Because, well, actually, to be more accurate, compare magnets of the same material. One's larger, one's smaller. They've been made the same way. They've been produced the same way. One just has more mass, more material to it. The one with more material to it is going to be stronger. Why is that? Because more parts are doing the same thing at the same time. There's more to it to add to the coherence, and that's why the coherence is stronger. And that's a term used to describe the strength of magnets. That's a magnetic term, it's coherence, even though they don't really know what that means. The answer to that question is, of course, it lies in the ontological foundation of monism, or neutral monism, or dual aspect monism, I believe it's called sometimes. And that's when consciousness people talk about how, intelligence is really complicated. When intelligence people talk about how, consciousness is really complicated, it's not complicated. You're talking about the exact same thing. There's nothing more to it. The reason it's complicated is because academia discourages people from asking ontological questions. What's that made out of? Discourages it. Why? Because of, in recent decades, we're in postmodernism. To be more accurate, we've been subverted by Marxist ideology. And so academia, as a state-funded religion, its sole purpose is not to develop technology. Its sole purpose is to provide an authority for the masses. I wouldn't necessarily say its primary purpose is to stop us from developing technology. Really, if you're into the study of intelligence, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because it's not politically correct to talk about intelligence, because well, the phrase politically correct, what that actually means is that someone who's politically correct, what that actually means is that they're supportive of Marxist ideology. That's all the phrase means. Really, that's all the phrase means. And someone who is politically correct and calls themselves a scientist is a liar and is merely the follower of a religion, a state-funded religion. So all intelligence is, all it is a measure of coherence, or a level of consciousness, which is quantifiable in the form of intelligence. That's what the study of intelligence is. That's what IQ is. It's the quantity of consciousness. Here's another metaphor. You got two lizards, the same species, One's a little bit bigger than the other. Which lizard has a higher level of consciousness? If you were to measure the quantity of consciousness in each lizard, which would have more quantity of consciousness and therefore be more intelligent than the other? It would be the larger lizard. Why? Because the purpose of the nervous system is to create coherence within itself. And if you were to compare the nervous system of a little lizard and a bigger lizard, the nervous system in the bigger lizard has more stuff in it. Just like the bigger magnet has more stuff. Neurons. And these neurons, there are more neurons doing the same thing at the same time because both lizards are awake, running around eating bugs. And if you were to measure the intelligence or the consciousness, same thing, of each lizard, you'd find that the bigger lizard has a higher level of consciousness because it's a bigger lizard. And that's why all of these genetics that are related to size are also correlated with intelligence. Like someone's height. Someone's height. Well, why is someone's height correlated with someone's intelligence? Because they're a larger person. and someone who's a larger person probably has a bigger skull and a larger brain with more densely, a higher number of neurons. It's all related. So maybe like a whale's brain isn't necessarily like a super genius compared to us. Because you're looking at the actual number of the individual parts, that the conscious parts that lead to the collective consciousness of a person's, an individual's consciousness, their brain. And as I've heard, and I might be wrong on this, correct me if I'm wrong, but human beings are special because of one reason. They have more neurons, more densely packed than any other animal. And that right there, you don't need to have this weird, futuristic device that measures the quantity of consciousness. Although we could invent that, it wouldn't be even that hard. In fact, it'll probably be here in the next 50 years, within the next 50 years. You don't even need a device like that. You just need to acknowledge the fact that this thing has more neurons than this thing, and therefore it is more conscious. It's difficult, though, to measure in that way, to measure the consciousness of something like a cactus. Forgive me, these metaphors are, I live in a desert, so there's a bunch of cactus and lizards. And you can't really compare a cactus to a lizard, because if you were to argue that a cactus has some kind of a nervous system, the quality of the consciousness of a cactus would be different from the lizard, because the materials of the cactus are different than the materials of the nervous system of the lizard. So I couldn't say anything, I couldn't compare a cactus to a human being or a lizard, but you can compare a lizard to a human being because they have similar materials in their nervous system. And a human being has more quantity of, they got more mass, they got more neurons, they got a bigger brain than a lizard. So you can pretty confidently say that lizards are pretty dumb and humans are pretty smart. Okay? So there's a whole bunch of people out here that are talking about how they want to raise humanity's consciousness. And people have been talking about that forever. There's a bunch of dead people that talk about it, and there's a bunch of people that are alive that are talking about it. And that's basically what they're talking about. And a lot of people don't want to hear that, you know, what they're actually calling for is an increase of intelligence amongst human beings. That's really what they want. That's really what they want, is for dumb human beings to be smarter than they are. That's really what they want. And they don't want to hear that because they're politically correct. Meaning they're, you know, they've been raised in this postmodern, i.e. Marxist society. Which is against science. It's anti-science and has been destroying academia and the scientific method. Yeah, I mean, they're into, it's just a religion. It's a religion, that's all it is. A state religion, funded by the state. And it's not a merit-based system. It is a system based off of how much you are in support of the state and the Marxist state religion. Well, anyway, enough of that. So I'm making this video series about various people and their ideas concerning the raising of humanity's consciousness. And one of these people doesn't use the phrase raising consciousness. What he wants is to raise intelligence, because he is an expert in the field of intelligence research. His name is Haier, H-A-I-E-R, I think, Haier. And I'll link to a video you can watch where he's being interviewed by Kermit the Frog. And he talks about how he wants, he thinks it would be cool to have some kind of a pill to raise the average IQ of everyone on the planet. And they're working towards figuring out what the mechanisms are to achieve that. And this is the closest you can get to an actual answer in all of through the entire topic of raising consciousness. This is the closest you can get. And Haier is the one guy out of all these people with all this ancient super secret knowledge, all these psychologists, all these religious people, etc., etc. Haier is the one guy who's the closest at having an understanding about how to raise humanity's consciousness. So yeah, I'm going to continue, you know, because I've been looking for organizations with the goal of raising consciousness who are actually trying to do that.